Teleport moved over 167 million parcels across the Asia Pacific in 2025. The Hashgraph Group is building enterprise solutions on Hedera, and together they're developing a digital customs documentation system that gives cross border shipments a verifiable digital identity from origin to clearance. Today's conversation is going to look at how Southeast Asia's trade infrastructure is being rebuilt at the document layer. I'm excited to be joined by Milan today from Teleport, as well as Deepak from the Hashgraph Group. Gentlemen, as we kick off here, for viewers that might not know about Teleport or THD, the Hashgraph Group, what does each business do and what does your role cover? Milan, I'm going to start with you since you're the guest of honor today, and thank
Sure.
you for joining.
Hey, thank you, Ryan, for this invitation. Thank you, Deepak, for this entire collaboration as well. So, just to give your audience an introduction about Teleport. Teleport is Southeast Asia's largest e-commerce logistics specialist. We move goods for merchants, for marketplaces, and small businesses across Southeast Asia and beyond. My role as a Chief Product and Technology Officer typically means I own two things for the organization: what we build and how we build it. That's everything from product strategy to data to engineering behind it and the science behind it. And our intent is to always continuously move things faster, cheaper, and better. At the scale that we are, we did a north of 160 million parcels last year globally, and we move it to the same funnel. Those decisions that we take have real immediate consequences for real business and real consumers in the region.
Awesome. And hey, by the way, Deepak, I saw your announcement on LinkedIn. Congratulations. I know there's a new role within THC, but tell us about the Hashgraph Group and what you do within the Hashgraph Group as well, Deepak. And thank you for joining.
Cool. Thank you. Like many of you already know who have been watching this for a while, THG basically is empowering Web3 businesses on Hedera. So we are the ones which help organizations like where Milan comes from, Teleports and others, to adopt Hedera technologies. Our main goal is to use our 6 curated products which we have to help enterprises fast track and accelerate using Hedera as their main technology. In my new role, which is being the Chief Operating Officer, I take care of all operations globally for THG. We are in 10 different countries, supported heavily by THA, which is the association, and it's a Swiss-based head office organization with offices all over the world.
Awesome. Well, Milan, I think we're going to get maybe a little bit more granular here. So I know that you had mentioned the stat about how many parcels you guys move Teleport, 167 million. I think you actually said more in the intro, but when you have that much movement and you're always trying to essentially gain efficiency with whatever you're doing, what are some of the current pain points in trade documentation today?
Sure, Ryan. Data actually tells the story very plainly. 43% of the organizations write that shipment stuck at customs is the primary bottleneck that they face. And of that, 41% pointed to HS code as being that particular primary blocker. Now, what does that really mean? That's nearly half the industry consistently pointing out the same issues and hitting the same walls. But for real businesses, one misdeclared value causes so much delay and time and patience that honestly nobody actually has to spend. Now, at the scale that we are today, even a small error rate compounds really fast for all of us. And that's the actual issue. However, the good news is that it's a solvable problem statement. And what we see, it's largely a coordination and an infrastructure problem. That's exactly the kind of problem that the right kind of technology can fix. And that's where we are.
It's interesting because I come from a really traditional project management background and heavy manufacturing in the nuclear industry. And I remember if you tried to get lead times for shipments, exactly what you said, Milan, it was impossible. And 9 times out of 10, the issue was always something getting stuck at customs. And the reason it was stuck at customs was, well, how do you verify what is in the actual shipment itself? And this kind of leads us into the solution, which is kind of why we do these in the first place. And I guess I'll ask both of you gentlemen, Hedera, AI classification, and trade trust. Can you describe what these new technologies enable for industry digitization? And Deepak, I'm going to maybe start with you and then move over to Milan.
Okay. So Hedera by itself, as you know, it's the layer 1 where by anchoring all the data which we just spoke about makes it more transparent, trustworthy because it's immutable, You have the audit trails and all of those coming in to bring all the efficiencies needed in a traditional documentation management systems which are missing, which then brings that in and then helps you to expose that without the fear of losing the privacy or losing control over your data. Then comes your AI classification. As you clearly were mentioning, understanding what is truly inside it is the biggest problem. And with the HSC codes and all of those, if you do it wrong, then it gets stuck for a very long time. And now with AI helping us figure out and bringing in a lot of triangulations to say what the package contains makes it much more easier. And then finally, with Track Trace as a product which we have, helps us anchor all of these on Hedera with a DID so that customs can easily unwrap each of these and then figure out what's in it and if the documents by themselves and the information coming from each of the stakeholders are right. Helping the entire system and building efficiency by at least 40% and above is where we are targeting. And then that helps us speed things up and make it more transparent.
100%. Milan, I would love your thoughts, maybe more broadly, on how this all kind of ties in together.
Absolutely. And Ryan, I would also kind of take a step of caution here. It's not that this is a problem that the industry has not been trying to solve ever. It's just that we have not been trying to solve this. And the real challenge is the structural complexity of the problem statement. Let's take a step back for 2 minutes and understand what it takes to move a shipment cross-border. The entire shipment flow involves a merchant, logistics provider, essentially a freight forwarder, a customs broker, a government agency who validates a document times 2. Because that's the origin and then the destination, right? And different agencies, different formats, different timestamps, different dates, different standards. That's what causes the real friction and the complexity in this entire journey. And even with the best intentions, the reality is the trade-offs are still very traditional. It's still an email, a PDF, a WhatsApp, a G Sheet, a WeChat. That's where the industry really is today, right? And it's because it's not about the intentional crime, but if you get something wrong, the cost is just too high to correct it. That's what the industry is all about. And the honest answer to it is that technology is the only way to solve this problem correctly. And with all the technologies and what THG brings to the table, AI-assisted classification, verifiable digital records, interoperable framework between different customs agencies, just helps us to reduce the friction in the process that we have in this cross-border. And when the friction gets reduced, this process becomes much more smoother. It leads to a better trust and a much faster processing. So that's what we are all aiming for here.
One thing that's interesting to me when you touch base on all of that is it's almost like all of this cascades too. I remember when you're running a project kind of from inception to shipment, there's all sorts of milestones tied to deliveries, letters of credit and 30% delivery of materials and things. But it all cascades because if you have to account for 30% delivery of materials, but those initial materials have the same problems that the end product has, it really starts snowballing. So I think that it's really interesting. And a lot of that, Deepak, from a provenance standpoint, is being able to attest to origins of a material or the origins of whatever ends up being shipped. That leads us into Track Trace. Can you talk about verifiable digital identity and how important it is, how it leverages Hedera, why THG, the Hashgraph Group, made it such a pillar as far as the product solutions that you guys have?
From the time we have talked about blockchains, DLTs, and Web3 and whatnot, we will see in the future, but the technology and one of the best use cases which we always go back and refer to is the provenance, the track trace, and the ability to do that without any issues and with all the efficiencies we need because of the transparency it can give you, the trust it can provide. So keeping that as an anchor, we've put this old wine of this entire process into a new bottle, which is track trace. And that is where we are saying that the entire provenance now comes with DID documents, which we nest it along. And I'm going a little technical, but I'll keep it high level as I can. And then that gets moved as the parcels or the supply chain moves. And that makes it very easy to identify what happens. Now, the second big thing as world progresses, and now, like Milan is saying about e-commerce, We can talk about critical elements and so on. The chain of custody becomes very important, as when it has dangerous goods or precious metals in it and so on. Chain of custody is much, much important. And with this and the decentralized digital identity, we can now say who has that and for how much time and what he acted upon. And we have a digital twin, which then helps you track this. The interesting thing which we did with Merck was then to bring authenticity to a physical element using their patented technology of secretings and stuff like that and a scanner, making a digital twin of that physical item, and then create a digital twin and then track that digital twin on Hedera using Track Trace. And bringing these two together, which are called phygital, makes it much more interesting for the entire industry to then bring that trust and traceability.
Can you maybe just touch base on that kind of identity and how important that is to conception to end user?
Sure. So I'll try and reframe it in a more language relevant for our supply chain and not go as deep as technical Deepak, right? But what it really means for us as a business, let's understand the impact. When every shipment that we move, be it e-commerce or any other kind of shipment that we move, is permanently and verifiably recorded. That's what it leads to. The friction that we talked about earlier is systematically disappears. And when the entire life cycle of a parcel or an e-commerce shipment is optimized from first mile to the last mile, and when you can trace it back to every auditable step, what does it mean? A customs authority can verify the declared value. A merchant can prove what they shipped and what they declared on the manifest was the correct declaration, correct commodity code, where it's not a dangerous good or not a PI for that matter. What we can do as a logistics operator is we can demonstrate the handover happened exactly as documented, right?
100%.
Operationally, that shifts the industry from a dispute resolution mode, that is a default operating model today, to a desirable proactive transparency mode. And at a systemic level, think about what that means for the region here that we operate in. We operate in a region which has regulators in Malaysia, Thailand, Indonesia, Vietnam, all needing to interoperate, but still maintain their own local regulations and comply with the local regulations. A shared, trustworthy record layer that we could actually achieve with this changes what's possible in terms of coordination of trade and facilitation of trade. That's the big picture that we are all aiming for.
Yeah, I think as you mentioned, Milan, it changes kind of these systems that have been in place for, well, really forever, from reactive to proactive. And Deepak,
Yes.
even to your point, when you start attesting to identity using decentralized identifiers, it doesn't even have to just, well, I'm kind of going down the rabbit hole here. It doesn't have to stop at what's being shipped. It's literally, is the individual that inspects a shipment qualified to inspect that shipment? Or are they certified to release something for shipment? So it really kind of has this effect across all over. One fact that I like to in supply chain, so I'll always love these logistics and supply chain interviews, is that there's still legislation that goes back to the late 1800s for hand-signed bill of ladings, which is like when you think about we're sitting in 2026 and there's some guy on a dock waiting for what's in a shipment to sign off on it. And there's so much room for digitization, I would think. I'm going to step back a little bit more broadly here and ask both you gentlemen about the relationship that you guys have facilitated over however long it's been. So what has it been like to work alongside the Hashgraph Group and the Hedera ecosystem, Alon? And then I'll work over to you, Deepak.
Okay, let's be really honest. When we were evaluating this, we only had two criteria. Whether the partner that we want to work with understands the complexity of what we are dealing with. And second is, has a partner actually proven operation scale? Because we move millions of parcels. So we needed something that comes with predictable cost and reliability and experience of proven enterprise grade. And that's where this entire partnership works for us. THG and Hedera come with trust that we need and proof of the scale that they can operate and the reliability of cost. That's very important for us as a logistics operator, that we can build that predictability into the entire business. So that's what we were looking for. That's what we got. And honestly, my interaction with Deepak has always been an amazing one. He understands the business that we do. He asked the right question and he was humble enough to kind of come and say that, okay, let's work together. You tell us what needs to be done. We will enable that for you. And that's what we want in that partnership.
Awesome. Deepak, those are a lot of praises for you there.
Absolutely deserves them.
Talk about the relationship, Deepak, and what it's been like.
Then I think when we were first introduced and we were brought in, I felt that there was no other better partner in this part of the world to work with who is large in scale, young enough, very, very ambitious to adapt technologies and then move things at a speed which we were feeling that no other things can do it and use our USP. So it was great to get introduced that way and then look at the problems and try to solve it. And I still go back to what Milan said. This is a age-old problem in my previous organization. We tried to do this with ABN Bev, Kunan and Nagel, and others with EU customs and stuff like that. We were almost there, but we didn't get it. But I feel this time a lot more confident with Teleport and the way they are building their technology and integrating track trace into it is unique by itself. Of course, I don't want to spill the business secrets out, but I feel this time we are much more closer to achieving this and beating the market and showing the way forward on how to do this. And no other better way of doing it with Milan as a CTO of Teleport, and then working with them and his team has been marvelous in the last 3 months now, I guess.
Yeah.
I think organizations, as you mentioned, forward-thinking organizations are very much so ready for figuring out how it fits into the architecture. So the pilot, from my understanding, targets Malaysian cross-border high-volume domestic air lanes. Talk about the pilot, where the pilot's at right now, and what the path to scale looks like, Milan. And maybe I'll start with you and then move over to Deepak.
Okay, so we are in a proof of concept stage right now, and we want to initiate this on Malaysian cross-border e-commerce lanes. And just to reiterate that we have done, this is not a sandbox. The intent is to get into live environments, real shipments, real documents, real merchants. That's the entire intent that we're going with. And once we're able to prove this does work, then it's expansion lane by lane, follows the business in the volumes that we do, and we collaborate together on this. The biggest win for us will be when we are able to kind of take it to the market and have more partners again associated with it, and eventually some agencies to also adopt this. That's the real win for us that we'll see for this entire thing that what we are doing.
Deepak, for logistics companies, enterprises, kind of across the board that want to be a part of solutions like what you guys are building at the Hashgraph Group, where do they even start at this point in time? Because I know that there's a lot out there, but you guys are obviously enacting change, and maybe walk us through where people can go to learn more or, yeah.
And so I think the first thing is to just get familiarized with what Hedera is and our set of products, especially the track trace. And if you go into the product section, you have all the 7 products which we mentioned, and the one which we are talking about is track trace, and you have all the details there. And where all the enterprises need to start is basically trying to see which is their biggest pain point, then come with that pain point to us as a challenge, and we will then try to solve that. And this is exactly what we did with Milan and Teleport. They had this documentation and seeing how the volume can hit that. They're doing 162 is what we've been saying, but it's much more. And when I speak to Milan, it's a higher number. And it's just not by 1 or 2 million. It adds like 20, 30 million every time when I speak to him. I guess it's now in 200 or close to 300 million parcels. So having that problem statement and then seeing which is the right technology and the right set of products which can help us then get the enterprises to go to the scale which we need and take them through the journey of solving that problem. All of these are backed by, though we keep talking about THG, is backed by THA and Hedera. So THA helps us with all the other tools and communities to help us push that and then bring all these enterprises and IPs and other things which we really need. And then, of course, all of these built on Hedera, and hence the layer 1 needs to work perfectly well for us to build on top of it. Keeping those in mind, the biggest challenge which I see for 3 enterprises, and we solve that very easily, is the speed which Milan was speaking about, the number of transactions which we do. The biggest problem with blockchain and DLT is that they do very few transactions, and then we are there to do large sets of transactions, and the finality is also less than 3 seconds. So it gives you that speed and scale.
Yeah.
Number two, like Milan said, he's a CTO. If he can't put a budget and say, hey, I have 200 million parcels, and that is the number of transactions which needs to go on the chain, how much is it going to cost? If you go to Solana or Ethereum or others, the prices fluctuate so much that Milan wouldn't be able to say, okay, I need to keep aside so much of budget for those transactions. And hence, we in Hedera have solved that by saying there's a fixed fee, and that the fixed fee is in fiat currency and not even in crypto, making it very easy for CTOs like Milan to say, okay, this is my budget and I can earmark that even 2 years later. And the third thing is, I think this is what Red Hat did it pretty well. When Linux was introduced, no one wanted to use it in the enterprise because there was no support and they didn't know whom to go. All the questions were thrown in abyss and then expected someone to reply and hopefully solve that problem. Maybe Linux Store World itself used to write a patch to the kernel and say, here is a patch. And then if you get it on time, it's great. Otherwise, you lose all your SLAs. And that's what is solved by Hedera through number one, governing council, and then second one, because of the Hashcare, which we provide from THE and THA, where if you have a problem, you just ask us and then we solve it within the SLA we provide. So those are the things I think will help enterprises adopt, and we are here to help them through this uphill journey to solve the problems which they have.
I think we're getting to the point where when you do onboarding of enterprise or institutions or whatever, and you solve pain points, I think if you would have said this maybe 10 years ago, there was just probably a ton of redundancy. But now, anytime you solve a pain point, it's like, okay, we learned those lessons. We understand how to really enact value into these institutions. And again, I think the other thing, and I pulled up the membership for a THA, which we're not going too deep into this, but I think it's a valuable thing. Whenever you start having organizations kind of being in the same groupings, then they kind of have that network effect as well. But what excites you both for the future? Just kind of broadly forward-looking statements, anything that we might have missed. And Milan, again, guest of honor, I would love to go with you on this for forward-looking statements first.
Sure thing. For Teleport, logistics will always be a physical business, Ryan. And we are always exploring new ways and new technologies in our attempt to move things faster, cheaper, and better. And finding the right technology that allows us to move closer towards that goal and find the right solution and reduce friction in cross-border deliveries, that's the game. The thing that genuinely excites me, if I'm being really honest, it isn't actually the efficiency gain that we achieve out of this entire solution for operators like us and other people in the market. It is what this thing does for the smaller merchants in the ecosystem. Right now, a merchant trying to send a parcel from, say, Thailand to Singapore has to absorb the cost of compliance that's largely hidden and is very much disproportionate to their cost of doing business. And having a verifiable, portable trade identity like what we're trying to build here, that kind of levels the playing field. And that is real economic access. And what we are building here is not a teleport-only solution. It is an interoperable solution that is open for any player to come on board and join the game. So that's the real economic access that we're talking about. So I'll take a pause there.
No, I think that's fantastic. And I think that it's always interesting for me to hear the thesis across various industry verticals when you talk about democratization, level playing field. I think it's so important because my head is heading towards trade finance and how kind of SMEs have been historically left out of trade finance. But Deepak, walk us out here, forward-looking statements for you, and close us out here.
For me, this is like a Lego block. You have few pieces which you're putting together and we're getting excited of it. But there are so many other things which you can do and add pieces together and make it really helpful for the entire industry, country, and the globe, making it very exciting on possibilities which we are not even thinking because we're just seeing few pieces right now. But the bigger picture and the big things which we might be able to do because of this is unimaginable. And the idea is to be flexible enough to adopt technologies. We've never thought AI could write computer code by itself. Now we are at a position where we are letting it do that, and being a technology which can set that stage and be flexible enough to take everything else to make this better is being forward-looking and innovative to bring this to the world. As Milan said, it's open, it's disruptive, but it is still very inviting to bring a consortium of members coming in and working with us. So it's a invitation to everyone who is trying to solve this problem. And if you think this is a problem to be solved, you're more than welcome, starting with Customs to come and join us, and we build something which we can show. And we spoke about trade trust, and one of those things which Singapore has done, we want to expand and work with anyone else in the world.
One thing I forgot to mention that both of you gentlemen mentioned was predictability and the ability to mitigate risk and have a network that can scale alongside wherever these enterprises and institutions are ready to scale. And I think that that is a differentiator, or at least kind of when you look at network level, Deepak. And same thing with the products that you guys are offering. Let me share screen here real quick to make sure I get all of the soft plugs in. Go to @Genfinity if you want to learn more. And then same thing, this is on X. We've already written an article on the teleport integration with the Hashgraph Group, but we will certainly probably be doing a follow-up that has this interview embedded into it. You can learn more about the Hashgraph Group at Hashgraph Group. You can learn about the Hashgraph Association at _Hashgraph. You can learn all about Teleport at teleport.it. And Hedera Council is here. Hashgraph.Swiss for the Hashgraph Association. And finally, go and check out the Hashgraph Association membership portal. There's all sorts of different tiers within this, whether it be community member all the way up to enterprise, but membership.hashgraph.swift. Well, I have to tell both of you gentlemen before we close out here, it has been a pleasure having you. I'm so glad we finally got to do this. Milan, from Teleport's standpoint, we really, really appreciate your team and you coming in today. And then Deepak, as always, a pleasure to talk to you, and congratulations again on the new role.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. It's been a pleasure.